Welcome. I'm Bernice Ross, the CEO and President of BrokerageHub.com.
My name is Greg McDaniel, and I am the co-host of a fantastically successful podcast called Real Estate Uncensored. But Bernice and I together are Real Estate Coach Uncensored.
So we're going to do something just a little bit different today. We have Curtis Fenn with us. He is the president of RedX, and I've been a fan of this tool for 15 years. Excuse me, because it is the best prospecting tool that is out there. And Greg's going to talk about how he's using it and the leads he's getting from this, and this is amazing. But it's much more than expireds and for sale by owners. So, Curtis, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me on the show.
We're delighted to have you. So could you begin with just talking about some of the statistics that you've seen from the RedX in terms of what's going on with your users? And you made it when we were prepping for our show today, you said you had a little bit of a soapbox that you want to get on. We've got a lot of new and not that experienced agents. So let's start with that.
Okay, and that's a great place to start because I think you start talking prospecting and people start to tune out a little bit, and we all want a magic wand, a silver bullet, something that makes it easy. We get our license. We want it to be easy. We post on Facebook, and then we go, where's all the deals, right? And that's not the reality. And so the soapbox, I'm glad you just called it out because you'll have to stop me if I get a little too passionate here. But what we're seeing in the marketplace, in a hot market like this, you're getting a lot of new people coming into the industry. And they're looking at successful agents in their office or in their market, and they're trying to emulate what they're doing in their business. Or they're going and they're asking a successful high transaction agent saying, what are you doing? And of course, they've been in the business for a really long time, and they go, well, I mostly just work referrals and with my sphere of influence. And so then these new agents go, okay, well, I'm going to work my sphere of influence. And they don't really know what that means. They end up going on Facebook and bombarding their friends and family, and they don't realize that they don't know how many people are unfollowing them and not seeing their posts. You become that guy, right? I mean, you're the guy at the family reunions. Everyone's like, oh, Greg, here comes Greg talking about real estate again, right? I mean, and so you become that, and there's misinformation about what it means to work your sphere of influence. What the question they should be asking is, they should be asking top producers, what did you do 20 years ago to get to where you are now? Because that's the journey they need to go on themselves. They can't jump ahead 20 years and expect to get the results that these top producers are getting, because they spent 20 years building a network of people. Your past customers are some of the most valuable assets that you have, because they will become your biggest advocate so long as you have a system and you're following up with them and you're maintaining a relationship, but they become your biggest asset. There's a local guy here I talk to a lot. He's been in the industry a long time. He's done 2,200 deals over 20 years. He's been very, very successful. Well, now he sits back. He doesn't have to do anything. I mean, he's selling generationally. People are calling saying, hey, you sold my parents a house. Now we're looking, and people now calling, hey, you sold my house 15 years ago, or sold me my house 15 years ago. I'm ready to sell. And he could do 50 transactions without trying. And people look at that and they go, wow, I'm going to work my sphere of influence. Well, if you ask him, what did you do 20 years ago? He spent 9 years on the phone 5 days a week for 3 to 4 hours a day prospecting. He built his sphere of influence through prospecting so that he could live the life that he has now. And if people getting into real estate that expect to have all that success and jump ahead, to the time. Now, there is a way to expedite that, and it's through prospecting, and prospecting multiple lead types in multiple different ways, which is the stats that we do a lot of research on, to expedite building a sphere of influence that you can continually get referrals from. But that sphere of influence that comes from prospecting becomes your retirement plan. That becomes how you're going to get deals without having to work as hard,
Greg, I have a question for you. How did you get started in the business?
Very slowly. um, I had my father to thank. He's been in the business 47 years, broker in 3 different states, massively successful, top producer in every single brokerage he went to. But when he started in the business, he started door knocking in the snow in Boulder, Colorado, when he literally didn't have a dime to his name. He had just gotten married to my mother. He had to borrow $50 from his new father-in-law to take his new bride on a honeymoon. Awkward. But he went ahead and did it, but he didn't have the option and luxury of smartphones, internet, social media, triple line dialers. He didn't have all these technological advances. And so what he did is he just changed his mindset, and he went out, and the same thing that I did. He said, everyone loves me, they just don't know me yet. And he had the cure for polio. His brother had polio. And so he just said that he had the cure for polio. Everybody's sick. I got the cure. And so his mindset had completely shifted. And so when I started in the business, he instilled that into me. And I was a little bit of not a little, I was a massive screw up. That's lightly.
So anybody can succeed is what you're saying.
anyone can succeed. I went out and you're talking about this guy who hit the phones for 9 years. I wasn't allowed to talk to a client. I was paid a salary, and I went out and I door knocked 5 days a week, at least 100 to 150 doors a day, 5 days a week from 9 to 5. Then I came in and I had to write at least 5 thank you letters to the people that I met on the doors, and then do follow-up calls and make sure that the people got it 2 days, in the past. So nothing comes easy. Everything you see in HGTV is a complete and utter total farcity. I mean, it is a lie upon lies upon lies. These guys are pumped up on stages. They have media machines behind them that propel them into the atmosphere. If you're a new agent, listen to me very closely. Do not misunderstand anything I tell you right now. This is going to be really friggin' ugly. It's going to be unsexy, uncool. You're going to sweat. You're going to cry. You're going to bleed. You're not going to want to be in the business. Your spouse is going to not like you too much because you're not going to be around for little Joey soccer games. But if you're totally dedicated to this industry, you have to get down, knuckle up, and use systems like RedX. Use systems that are available to you now to make yourself more productive. When I first started using a triple line dialer, a gal came to me and she said, Greg, I'm using dialer.
Second. What's, so people who maybe knew or may not know when we use the term SMS or triple line dialer, what those things are. So if you can kind of elaborate on how.
Triple line dialer is what RedX is. They have a single line or a triple line. So it means they'll call 3 lines for you simultaneously. Now, it's not as scary as you think. It's very easy to operate. There's nothing scary about this. But once you start using these programs, you'll start being able to 10x your reach. You can do hundreds of phone calls in an hour, depending on the settings you put it on. But you got to understand, you got to get in, you got to grind. And yes, you can call your sphere of influence, but that cannot be your sole source of lead generation. You've got to understand your best friends, your sister's best friends, your brother's best friends, all these people are going to buy and sell with other people. You can't let that dissuade you from doing this industry. Just sit down and make sure you put your best foot forward, use the tools in front of you, and just put your nose to the grindstone and just dial, door knock, prospect, network, make videos, put yourself out there in the biggest possible way. Peacock the heck out of yourself so that everyone knows who you are, so you're not a secret agent. Wouldn't you guys agree with that comment?
Absolutely.
Yes.
In fact, I want to, Curtis, you had some statistics about people who make $70,000 versus $250,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the probably the most telling one was the people who, if you make $250,000, you 100% of them have a written business plan, written goals. They prospect 4-6 days per week. Versus those who make 70%, 82% versus 60% with written goals. The difference, though, in their prospecting level is 6.9 hours per week versus 4.6 hours per week. That's not even 3 hours difference per week. That difference, if you prospect essentially 7 hours a week and you do it regularly, using the RedX tools, and this is based upon a RedX study. Curtis, you also had some other statistics that you're talking to me about in terms of where they spend their time. Do they do more buyers or sellers? What's your take on that?
So I wrote down a bunch of things. So my just to back up for people who are watching this, because you know everybody can look at stats online. So just to back up, I mean, we've been working with tens of thousands of agents all the time. We've surveyed. Some of these stats come from surveys that we continually do each year. And surprisingly, a lot of the stats we've hit statistical significance where they're not changing a lot as we continue to do. But these are thousands and thousands and thousands of returned surveys, not thousands of agents surveyed, but returned surveys. In addition to the survey that you're quoting from, we did over 100 hours of interviews following up with people on the surveys. So these aren't just made up things. We do a lot of research here. One of the more recent surveys that we did, studies, I would say they're studies, not surveys, that we did was around sellers. And people who spend 60 to 70% of their time working with sellers make 30% more than those who spend that much time working with buyers. And that was taking out consideration of time in the industry and everything else. We kind of made all of those things neutral and just try to compare those two things. Is working with sellers better or working with buyers? We actually found that people who spent some of their time with buyers made more money than people who wouldn't work with buyers at all. But that seemed to be the sweet spot, was 60 to 70% of their time with sellers and going after sellers versus trying to acquire buyers. But the marketing shows itself. I mean, to be able to buy a tool like RedX and have several different seller leads at the cost at pennies per lead versus some of these companies that trick you into easy, and trick is a strong word, so no offense meant.
I think it's a fair word. The 35% referral fee to generate a lead for you versus generating your own lead through RedX. Yeah. It makes absolutely no sense to be paying 35% for leads.
Well, and even the social media thing, people will say, well, I spend $1,500 a month in ad spend to generate a bunch of internet buyers that are usually buyer leads that have a 2 to 3% closing over a 12-month period of time. That is a really expensive way to get business versus what Greg's talking about of just buckling down. I did want to throw out one stat for you, Greg, which is of the people that made $250,000 or more, 59% of them still went out and knocked on doors.
Yeah, and knocking on doors is the best way to do a couple of things. One, it's your office for a portion of the day. You got sunshine, clean air in your lungs. You're out getting some exercise, losing those pounds you ate because you had Snickers at lunch, and you get to meet the neighborhood. I did that my first year, like I told you guys earlier, to the point where I would be able to know people and see them around town. And a funny story, I saw this lady. She just got into to lending, and she was out on broker's tour. And I walk up to her, I'm like, hey, I know you. You live on Via Don Jose. Your house is one of the 3 big redwoods in the front. Your husband has a motorcycle. You just bought a brand new minivan, and you just had a kid. And she just backed up. And I'm like,
that's a little creepy, Greg.
And I'm like, I'm not a stalker. I just do a lot of door knocking. And she's like, oh, yeah. I remember seeing you. But, we bonded in a good relationship there. And you get to see, who's redoing their house, who's getting ready for a yard sale. You can talk about what the neighbors are doing. You can figure out what's happening in the neighborhoods. You can never get from sending a flyer. You can never get from posting on social media. You can never get from any other modes of prospecting. You've got to be in the trenches, in the weeds, out with the people, hanging out. If this is going to be your territory, you better know it upside down and backwards. We have a saying that we know what we prospect so much, we know what people have for dinner on some streets. And that's what you got. You can't be a jack of all trades. You can't go work in Burlingame and then San Francisco, then San Jose, and then over here in Walnut Creek. Any of you guys who know the what I just said, that's like all different points of the Bay Area. And there's probably about an hour apart, each one of them. You can't be that. You've got to niche down. Riches are in the niches. All right. Get into your areas. Prospect like a dog after a bone. Make those calls. Do the for sale by owners. Do the for rent by owners. Do the pre-foreclosures. Be out there to cure, polio, cancer, AIDS, whatever atrocity plagues you. You're out there with the cure for them, and you got to be like a dog and just get after it. Even if they get told go kick rocks. You're the worst human being on planet Earth. You call them back a week later, they're not going to know who you are. Okay. It's not personal.
So Curtis, I was really intrigued when you said there's actually 6 different types of clients that you serve, because we know you primarily for sale by owners and expireds, but you have a new platform that's called Vortex. It's not so new. It's been out there for a couple, 3 years, that I was very excited about, because if I take a listing, I can get data that's scrubbed against the do not call list. Can you talk about the, what those client types are, but specifically what do you do in terms of do not call, how that
Sure.
works?
Sure. So Vortex is a prospecting platform. There's 5 different lead types, expireds and FSBOs. And those 2 are a more aggressive lead. Not everybody can handle that. In fact, our sales guys now are starting to ask people when they call in, because they want to work expireds and they've never done that. We say, well, how thick is your skin? And they go, what do you mean? And we have to talk them through maybe a different lead type that's not so saturated or hard, or, people make a lot of money with expireds. That's great. But expireds, FSBOs for rent by owners, which are vacant rentals. And as Greg pointed out earlier, they're not always vacant, but either they may have recently been vacant or that. But we're looking for the homeowner of the address, not a property management company. Often those are, people who ended up with a home back in the recession, and they've been renting it out ever since, and they have no idea the equity play. So it's a great listing lead opportunity. Those are very non-confrontational. Not a lot of people work those. And for most people, it's a business call. They have way less emotional attachment to that property that they're renting out than their own personal home. So it's really, if I could show you how to put more money in your pocket versus you keep renting that out, they go, yeah, let's sit down and talk. So that's
let me get you pause for a second. That's the script right there. So
yeah, that is
repeat that.
Yeah. So it's if that's the close, right? If I could show you how I could put more money in your pocket versus you, and then the pain, deal with tenants, or continually have to rent this out, or deal with maintenance on this property or whatever, would that be worth 15 minutes of your time? And for a rental, it's a business thing. So if you could show them how you make more money, that's easy. And if they don't want to sell, usually you want to buy more rentals. So that's a great investor lead. Or if you have property management, or you can refer it to a property manager, that's a great networking opportunity.
So what are the other 2 types of leads? And then I want to circle back to Greg with your real world experience about what you actually found yesterday, what you experienced yesterday. Yeah. So the 2 other types of leads that you have?
So we have foreclosure data. So anything that's in foreclosure or pre-foreclosure. And then we have a Geo-Leads product, which is a neighborhood search that really you could look at as multiple different lead types within that. Sometimes you want to call around a recently listed or recently sold property. We have a lot of people that call if they're doing an open house, to invite all the neighbors to an open house. In there, you can also filter absentee owners. So you could say, I only want to call people who don't live in the property. Different than rent by owners is they're not actively looking for tenants, but often again, that's a really great listing lead opportunity there.
And with absentee owners, especially the ones that have owned it for a long time, they will have used up all their depreciation. So it may make sense for them to do what's called a 1031 exchange and go into another property. That is a specialty transaction. You get your manager help on that, but that is another opportunity. Yeah. So Greg, I want to circle back to you now in terms of what you experienced yesterday, because you're doing something called beers and calls several times a week.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what that is and where they can find you, and then what happened to you yesterday.
Okay, a couple of things. One, I want to go back to Curtis really, really quickly on something. So here, if this is something that I started a long time ago, and I didn't know, and then Bernice, I've told you about this, but if you guys want to do something that no one else is doing, I would encourage you this is how you do it. You go into your MLS, you find the highest priced property that was on for the lowest amount of days, okay, that's pending within the max a week, but hopefully it was yesterday, right? Somewhere in there. And then I want you to go in, get that address. And if you have a good enough relationship, go call that listing agent and say, hey, Curtis, your property on 123 Main Street just went pending. Out of curiosity, how many offers did you get, right? Hopefully it's more than one. Let's say it was 3 offers. Great, Curtis. Congratulations, man. I'm going to go see if I'm going to do some prospecting in the neighborhood, rock and roll. Then you go back and you go get that address, you put it into the Geo-Leads, and you pick the closest 200 or 300 or 400 properties, whatever you want to do. Don't do the 50. You got to do more, right? You got to spread your net. And then you call out and you say, ring, ring, ring. Hi, Bernice. My name is Greg McDaniel. I'm a real estate agent with ABC Real Estate Agency here in town. I'm sure you saw that your neighbor on 123 Main Street was for sale, but it actually went pending 2 days ago. And there was actually 3 offers on the property. And I was wondering, with that amount of activity, have you guys thought about taking and putting your home on the market, taking advantage of these high prices and these active buyers? And these people don't know that the home went pending. They know it's for sale, but they don't see a sold sign. Right? So you're giving real-time information to them, actionable call to action, and you're bringing something that they need into their life. And who knows, maybe Bob and Sally are looking at John and Stacy going, man, if these fools can get that much money, we can definitely get more money because our house is way better than their house. The standard script, right? But yeah, Beers and Calls is something that was born 3 or 4 years ago. I transformed it 2 years ago into Beers and Calls. Basically, I wanted to have a beer at 4:30 and not just kind of making it something fun. I'm like, let's just drink a creative beer and do some calls. So I do live prospecting calls using RedX, the 3-line dialer, on my Facebook page. Go to Greg McDaniel on Facebook, follow me there and subscribe to me, and you can watch these happen. And it's just me, real life, seeing what's taking place, how these calls go, my script, my tonality. I have a good friend of mine, Stefan Adika, from the Adika group in the Central Coast. He does the calls with me. He's a tattooed ex-rock and roll guy, so he's got a total different take on it. I got named Terrence Davis out of South Carolina that sometimes joins. So we have these 3 different personalities that are doing these calls. And my leads from yesterday, let me pull my notebook up here. So I talked to, and keep in mind, this is in about a 45-minute span, and I was calling for rent by owners. Now, a lot of you are probably going to say, why would I call it for rent by owner? Think about it really quickly, okay? For rent by owner, what does that mean? That means they have money, they like real estate, and they own more than one home. And they probably run with people who do the same thing. So you call them up, you say, ring, ring, ring. Hey, Curtis, my name is Greg McDaniel. And by the way, my calls are recorded here for training and quality assurance, because I got to say that in California. And I say, did your home at 123 Main Street rent? And then no matter what they say, you just say, that's exactly why I'm calling. I have active investors looking in the area. Would you consider selling if I could get you the fair market value, if not even maybe a premium? You start off with that script and you just dive into it. And with that script, calling the for rent by owners yesterday, this is my results. 45 minutes of dialing, okay? It wasn't like all day. I have a guy up in a city called Martinez, which is about 20 minutes that direction north. He wants me to drive by and run some numbers. I have the updated photos, so I'm going to drive by today and I'm going to take a look at it, get back with him. I talked with another gal, Susanna. I'm going to call her husband Victor. They have a rental property in Concord, which is that direction. They might sell for $332,000. Not a lot of money in my market, but I got an investor that's looking to buy and to do some buy and holds in that price point. And then I have a nice woman, Mila, and I'm going to send her some information about me and my team. And she's potentially thinking about buying some additional investment properties in 2020. So if you just ask the questions and you get in a state of curiosity and you use the system consistently and persistently, look, there are going to be days your teeth are going to be kicked in. You're going to be dragged behind a car on barbed wire attached to you, okay? It's going to be brutal. But other days, it's going to be glorious. It's going to be magical. People are going to come out of the woodwork. They're going to be great. They're going to ask you to come over. They're going to ask you to, they want to buy properties. They want to list stuff. It's all a numbers game. So you've got to be consistent at your prospecting. There was days, guys, look, this is right here. It's chicken scratch. I have doctor handwriting, on a bad day. But if I didn't make my calls yesterday, someone else would have found these people. And we don't want that guy in your office who we know, who I'm talking about, right? Mm-hmm. The guy who doesn't do a good job. We don't want him getting a hold of these people. That's going to be a bad experience. But if you get a hold of them, if you do your calls, you do your dials, you do your door knocks, these things will happen to you as well. And I got a whole notebook here of leads that this happens to. I got another notebook right here. So I call it my little black book of properties. Guys, this thing's filling up with all my other leads that I get from my dials. It's just by persistency. And it's not going to happen overnight. But just sit down and do it.
Greg, to kind of wrap up for today, it's just, the takeaway here for you certainly is that you are doing the absentee, the rent to owns are really working for you. You're also doing the expired for sale by owners.
Yes.
Curtis, to you, It's been an interesting conversation. Anything that you'd like to say before we wrap up for today?
Well, I appreciate Greg, and I think that if you do watch his prospecting, you get a realistic view. I mean, some days he'll prospect for 45 minutes and he won't even make a great contact.
Nope.
There's yeah, and I'll try to be quick, Bernice, because I know you're trying to wrap it up. There's 3 reasons why people end up not being successful in prospecting. The first is the technology. Somehow they just don't want to learn a new system, a new lead type, and that's hard. We can help you overcome that. The second thing is their skill set. They end up getting on the phone and they call and then they realize, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I don't have a script. And then that's hard and they feel dumb and they hang up the phone. They go, this isn't for me. So skill set, but the biggest one is mindset. There is bad numbers, right? I mean, Greg said it, when you knock doors, people might call you the most horrible human being on the planet and slam the door. And if you can't get past that, you may be in the wrong industry. There are other lead types that you can work that are easier for rent by owners. I mean, have you ever had a for rent by owner get mad at you for calling, Greg, ever?
Not a single time. They're always good because they want to do something with the property. They're actively involved in the real estate industry.
But expireds, have you had an expired listing get mad at you because 10 other agents called them?
Yeah.
Well,
It's like, where were you when my property was for sale?
Right. I mean, there's other lead types that are easier, but if you don't have the mindset to overcome and go and deal with bad numbers, we're out finding phone numbers and creating leads. That's getting harder and harder in today's world. And there's going to be bad data. There's going to be bad leads. There's going to be some great ones. And just like Greg was saying, and if one of those 3 things, you've got to go into it knowing, okay, which one is going to stop me, and decide before you start, okay, when I start to get frustrated about my script, I'm going to keep going. Or when I get frustrated that I'm not getting results, I'm going to keep going because it's consistency.
Well, what I'd say for you guys really quickly, don't gamify this. Go get with your buddy in the office and say, whoever gets the biggest F off or the biggest whatever, that person, the other person buys that person lunch. So you'll make it a competition, make it an advantage, not a detriment when you get people that are really bitter at you. And you just laugh and say, you know what, they just had a bad day. It's okay.
So to wrap up, finally, we've been visiting with Curtis Fenn. He's the president of RedX. Curtis, where can they find you on the web?
It's the RedX, TheRedX.com. Come check it out, and we're pretty low pressure, so poke around and see if it's for you.
Great. And I'm Bernice Ross, the CEO and president of BrokerageUp.com and RealEstateCoach.com. Check out our training if you need those scripts. And Greg?
Again, guys, you know who I am. My name is Greg McDaniel. I'm the co-host of Real Estate Uncensored, one of the world's most fascinating podcasts. If you want some amazing training, go ahead and find us on iTunes. Leave us a 5-star review. But together, Bernice and I are Real Estate Coach Uncensored.
And Curtis, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much.